Tuimbe pamoja.
Shukuruni Bwana kwa kuwa ni mwema, kwa maana fadhili zake ni za milele. Shukuruni Bwana kwa kuwa ni mwema, kwa maana fadhili zake ni za milele.
Shukuruni Mungu wa miungu,
Fadhili zake ni za milele.
shukuruni Bwana wa mabwana,
Fadhili zake ni za milele.
amefanya maajabu.
Fadhili zake ni za milele.
Yeye alifanya mbingu na nchi.
Fadhili zake ni za milele.
Sema kabisa.
Shukuruni Bwana
Kwa kuwa yeye
ni mwema, kwa maana fadhili zake
nasema.
ni za milele.
Shukuruni Bwana wetu.
Shukuruni Bwana
Sababu gani?
kwa kuwa ni mwema, kwa maana fadhili zake ni za milele.
Amefanya mianga mikubwa.
Fadhili zake ni za milele.
Jua litawale mchana,
Fadhili zake ni za milele.
mwezi na nyota usiku.
Fadhili zake ni za milele.
Tandaza nchi juu ya maji.
Fadhili zake ni za milele.
Iba kabisa.
Shukuruni Bwana
Sababu gani?
kuwa ni mwema, kwa maana fadhili zake
Nasema.
ni za milele.
Shukuruni Bwana wetu.
Shukuruni Bwana
Hehehehe.
kuwa ni mwema, kwa maana fadhili zake ni za milele.
Aliyegawa bahari ya Shamu,
Fadhili zake ni za milele.
akavusha Waisraeli.
Fadhili zake ni za milele.
Aliyemshinda Farao
Fadhili zake ni za milele.
na majeshi yake yote.
Za milele.
Sema kabisa.
Shukuruni Bwana
Hehehe.
kwa kuwa ni mwema, kwa maana fadhili zake ni za milele.
Shukuruni Bwana.
Shukuruni Bwana
Sababu gani?
kwa kuwa ni mwema, kwa maana fadhili zake ni za milele.
Ihaji chuna hiyo gitaa. Ni vema kuhesabu baraka ambazo Bwana amekatuletea. Yeye ni mwema kwetu. Sema kabisa. Kama umchezei Bwana, utatuambia unamchezea nani? Yeye aliyetukumbuka
Za milele.
katika unyonge wetu,
Fadhili zake ni za milele.
atuokoaye na watesi. Mungu kweli ni wa ajabu
Fadhili zake ni za milele.
kabisa.
Shukuruni Bwana
Kwa kuwa yeye
ni mwema, kwa maana fadhili zake
nasema.
ni za milele.
Shukuruni Bwana wetu.
Shukuruni Bwana
Kwa
Welcome to Mental Health Stars discussion today, and we want to welcome Mr. Reverend Anthony. Come now. Realize this is the first time, I believe, you are calling in as a Reverend. Come now, correct? We can hear you, but we welcome you. We are starting. This meeting is being live streamed until the place where we will start asking questions, personal questions, and comments. My name is Reverend Wambui Njoroge. I'm the chair for Mental Health Stars Incorporated by the grace of God and with the consent of board members that I see here. One is Reverend Anthony Kamnau with KMEN, which stands for Kenyan Men Empowerment Network. I also notice we have Bishop Pini Mothe, doctor, and he is also a board member. The others are not here, and as a protocol, we do have Dr. Nancy Wamba from California. She's a psychologist. We do have Mr. Kevin Ngoge from Georgia. He is a nursing practitioner. I think it's important people understand when you are a nursing practitioner, you are just like one step close to the doctor. You can prescribe medication, you can diagnose, you can do a whole lot. And it's a step higher because you have to have a master's degree and clinical practice and be licensed. So it's not a walk in the park, but we want to welcome you whatever it is that you aspire to be in the United States of America. I want to guarantee you that God is able. Whatever you do, you might not be a nursing practitioner. You may be like Reverend Wabui. I am an evangelist, but by call, actually, my specialty is working with children, adolescents, and their families within the school communities. So if you have a child that is in school and up to graduation in high school, I'm the lady you want to know when there are issues. So I'm not a guidance counselor, but I work closely with all the staff in the school whenever a student has any problem that hinders their learning. And I'm going to mention that when we talk about children. For now, please relax. This is more like a living room conversation. We want to go over modalities. We have a chat. You see, we have a chat where you can raise your hand. We have a chat where you can comment or even ask questions. We also have a reaction button here. Like now, I feel wonderful about you. I'm so happy you're here. And you can also raise your hand and with a reaction button. And if you're very happy, if I say something funny, you know, sometimes I can be funny without even intending to be. So, and you can lower your hand, and the smile will go away. Since I can't smile all the time, but I'm grateful that you're here tonight. So we're going to have a wonderful, wonderful evening, and we are going to open with a word of prayer. We are going to ask Mr. Come now. Then I'll come back with. I can just go ahead and say, this is not a clinical experience. This is a personal, individual, family, community experience. So I am not your doctor. I'm not your counselor. I'm not opening a chat. I'm not charging you. We are just going to be free, okay? And the disclaimer means that because I'm not none of the above, all the board members, they are not practicing tonight. So we encourage you to consult with your psychiatrist, your counselor, or your primary care physician if you have issues. And we want to also encourage you, if you or someone you know is having mental health issues, they are deteriorating instead of getting better, you can call 988 nationwide in the United States of America, and you can get help. A trained counselor will answer you, and they will direct you how to go from there. Mental health is kind of tricky. Sometimes it's hard to get help on yourself. That's why you need gatekeepers like counselors. Myself, I'm also like a gatekeeper. If you need services, I cannot provide the services now, but I can make a referral anywhere in the United States of America. I would even say in the world. Nobody will stop me. So I just want you to encourage you that do not suffer alone. Do not watch others suffering alone. There is help. Welcome, Mr. Come now, open with prayer, and we'll go straight to the presentation. And our first presenter is going to be Bishop Pini Mothe, and then I'll come second so that I can catch a breath. As you can see, I'm excited. I don't remember if I even breathed in, which we start with, like breathe in through your nose, like relax. Breathe in again. Breathe out with your mouth. Breathe in with your nose. Oxygen. Breathe out with your mouth, and you can even say, ha, ha, ha. You know, so you can tell you're breathing. Welcome, Mr. Come now. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Well, let's pray. Father, we thank you for this night. You're such a mighty God. We want to start with you. Thank you for MHstars. For so many years, you've allowed us to come through, help us every situation that goes around. We thank you and we lift up your name. And it's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Welcome, everybody. Thank you. Welcome.
Amen. Our first presenter is going to be Bishop Mothe. I want to let you know that this platform has an holistic approach, meaning we are taking the spiritual aspect of you of us as individuals. We are taking the sociological perspective of us as individuals. We are taking the medical. We even employ the medical because we are based on best practices, meaning we are sharing information with you that is research tested. Because when you do that, if you get into trouble, somebody asks you, how did you arrive at this? You need to have an answer. So we also have a spiritual perspective, and we have individuals representing this holistic perspective. Let me just say something, and then we'll invite our bishop. Number one, we are going to define what is mental illness. This platform is called Say No to Depression. But you see, depression is one aspect of mental illness. And we say mental illness, there are different kinds. Mental illnesses are different kinds of brain disorders. For example, depression, that is lasting feelings of sadness or helplessness, or feeling like you don't want to live, like you're going to kill yourself or take out your own life or somebody else's life. Then we have bipolar disorder. They are extreme mood swings. They are highs, very highs, and lows. But there's a difference between that. Schizophrenia is kind of tough. It's a complete breakdown from reality. Something where your brain does not function as it is. And that's why it's an illness. The problem with schizophrenia, let me just tell you, schizophrenia is a serious mental illness or condition. Treatment can help, as usual. But as of current research today, there is actually no cure unless God performs a miracle. But someone with schizophrenia can enjoy life and function, but maybe very, very difficult. So please have God's grace and compassion if you have anyone in your family who has schizophrenia, because it's a serious illness that may render an individual not to be able to function at all for the rest of their lives. It doesn't start all the time when you are born, but you get to there in a minute. Let's welcome Bishop Mothe, and he'll come from there. Thank you.
God bless you, Reverend. In fact, I'm right holding the brochure for Homeless Reform Project, where I'm a secretary. And this forum interests me very much because it's about the people I really deal with. I know them from the ground. the problem with these people, or the problem with our communities, is how to reach these people. Because of the pressure that the trauma of being homelessness impacts on them, they are not normal. Even though you may find them normal, they can react wildly anytime because they are mentally affected. They cannot hold the pressure of just realizing they are out there in the streets and nobody is like nobody loves them. So the homeless are both mentally ill and substance abusers. And they are thought as anonymous, as sidelined people who are the way they are because of their contribution. That's what most people think. Because they are normally not sober. But they are not so because they don't do this because of their choice. They do this because some want to hide guilt or something like that. So we must do everything to know how to approach them in the streets. And the first thing is building a relationship. There must be a relationship built between the person that is interested in having dialogue with these people, and a relationship may not be built in a day. So we find ways and means of building relationship, building rapport with them. We feed them, and we don't feed them with just a meal. We want to feed them with very good meal, a meal that we also participate in, we share. So that because we want them to feel loved, we want them to stop seeing themselves negatively, despairing in life, putting down tools. We want these people to regain the management of their lives once more. Homeless Reform Project is not, it does not support the shelter way of life. Just giving them shelter and chasing them away the following morning to readmit them in the evening, and you don't care where they are going and how they are staying and what they are taking. He remains even worse than he was yesterday. And we believe we can reform them. We believe they can be sailed through recovery programs by people who are concerned, because you need to have patience with these people. Now, the reason why I'm very much interested in this discussion tonight is the discharge to the streets part of it. Because that is our challenge as Homeless Reform Project. Glory be to God. About 30% of the homeless persons are normally just discharged there and then. That means every day there is an influx from recovery centers, from hospitals, from clinics, psychiatric clinics, and from acute care hospitals. There are these discharges coming in. Where Homeless Reform Project suffers is that we are the ones that take these people to these institutions. We sign and we commit ourselves, but the time they are being released, we are not told. We just learn somebody is back and has relapsed in the park, in the streets, and everywhere. Why? When we ask and reach in for explanation, we are told this is in observance of the confidential regulations, that they should not disclose any health issues. And yet we are the people that took these people to the institutions. Sometimes we go through it, you go it through very hard trail, because you cannot take him for recovery programs unless they consent to it, unless they ask. But there is a law, Section 35, where if you find he's moving in the wrong direction, he can hurt himself, he can be harmed by vehicles, he can even hurt others. We go to court, we got the judge, and ask the judge to invoke Section 35, where we are given permission to use police or law enforcement officers to get these people by force to institutions of recovery. And some have benefited from that very much, because some, after they come out, they themselves want to reform. And they inform us, they try every means when they are in there to tell us when they are coming out, so that we go for them and ensure they don't go back to the same company. We organize where they may go. Treatment facilities discharge people into homeless in two ways. Some hospital and detox discharge sheets literally release these people into the streets. And this is like giving him a license for relapse, because immediately they go and mix up with the former company. The welcome party will be more, you will find this person in a worse situation than the situation he was in when you took him there. Others give about the about to be released patient the name and address of a homeless shelter that may have a bed or miss a bed. You can imagine a scenario where this homeless person goes to the homeless shelter and there's no bed. He will choose to remain with others that sleep in parks, because there are people there are some of them who do not want to hear even a shelter. They just want to be somewhere in a group, under trees, in a tent, or in a tent in the park. The discharge sheet that they receive may include instructions on how he will follow up taking medication and attending to health clinics that are highlighted in the discharge sheet. But the financial condition of these people will not allow that, because every cent they receive, the only commodity they know is liquor or drugs. So they will not follow through. So discharge sheets become a prescription for relapse. And he will keep being readmitted to the same institutions or other institutions, both recovery institutions and behavioral institutions, depending on his condition. We must recognize that the streets where these people are not very good and comfortable places. You expect anything there because there's violence, assault. They even rise against one another. And there can be rape. And these instances, these events are very usual. It is nothing else that caused them to behave that way. The stress of life will cause them to behave that way. They react very quickly and sometimes for no reason. And this stress of life is the same one that invites relapses. For those seeking recovery after detoxification, the streets are an invitation to relapse with their easy access to drugs and liquor and the temptation to use the only easily available medicine to blunt, erode the harshness of reality of life. We had earmarked a very high success rate in our operations, only to discover that this discharge to streets from recovery centers, hospitals, and the like are costing us a lot of failure, a relapse of over 60%. And the only cure we came up with is having own transition facility where we can immediately admit and accommodate these people to go through specially tailored programs, preparing them for responsible and final exit into productive life, into independence. We need a transit facility so that we can have hands-on management on the residents, on these people. God bless you so much.
Thank you very much, Bishop Muthe. And we are going to enter to ask individuals to have your questions ready. My presentation that is left is very short because I'm going to talk about children and adolescents. And sometimes it's important to let individuals know that mental illness does not only manifest when you are an adult. As we have shared before, mental illness can be caused by various things. For example, there could be physical causes, genetic causes, environmental causes, can also be aggravated, like Bishop is saying, someone already has an underlying mental illness, then they take drugs to help them feel better. Somebody knows, if I take this drug, I'll feel better. Now you have created two problems. However, anyone can be at risk of developing mental illness. Children, teenagers, women, adults, and older adults. And this is why we are creating awareness so that we can monitor ourselves and also be aware when someone starts to deteriorate or to get sick. For children, we start seeing children with mental illness, not mood disorder and all this, but mental illness when they are in school, especially from the time, because of development, there are many underlying issues in the life of a young child that we might not actually be able to diagnose accurately, because mental illness is diagnosed by a doctor, a medical doctor, a psychiatrist, and a whole group of professionals that you chat and also see this person and agree and understand and say this person has mental illness. Because as we said earlier, it is not treatable. It's treatable, sorry, but it's not curable. So we have to be very careful not to assign any label to anyone. Remember, an illness like asthma, like diabetes, like high blood pressure, we are now used to this. But mental health, we also need to get used that individuals can be treated and can be able to function, with one exception. For mental illness, it's a very serious illness, and it affects individuals in the way that they are not able to function well. For example, cognitively, the thoughts, disorders, delusion, amnesia, somebody might believe that a lion is following them, even though they have never seen a lion caged anywhere, and believe that an ordinary event has special and personal meaning that nobody else in the world has this special meaning. And sometimes there is a false belief of superiority. When it comes to grown-ups, there would be a mood, anger, anxiety, apathy, feeling detached from self, a general disconnection with their thought processes. And of course, at this time, we also see psychological issues like hallucination and hearing voices. Video hallucination is like someone could be watching TV and say, oh, I just saw my grandmother on TV. And for sure, this grandmother is not on TV. Or I saw my grandfather, he really came on TV, and maybe the grandfather passed away a long time ago. And it's really hard to convince this person that actually grandfather did not come on TV. And they're the only person that have seen this phenomenon. So there is audio hallucination, hearing voices. Then there is visual, where somebody can see things that nobody else can see. Paranoia, there's depression, deep depression that does not almost go away. You can have depression. Any one of us can experience depression for 1 week, 2 weeks, and especially like when people die, we have social events like this that trigger depression, and then after some time you feel better. But when someone has mental illness, without treatment and without help, they are not gonna ever feel better. Some of the basic things we take for granted, we don't really take it for granted, but we just do them because we are accustomed to doing, like daily functioning activities, combing your hair, brushing your teeth, taking a shower, changing clothes, could be actually huge indicators of someone who is deteriorating. Sometimes people might think they are being persecuted by the church. If you don't agree with this person, they might decide that everybody is talking about me. Many times nobody's talking about anybody. People are busy working, going their businesses. But we are talking about someone who is sick. Speech, circumstantial speech, incoherent speech, rapid and frenzied speaking, or speech disorder. Also, when you have experienced mental illness, it is common to be fatigued, feel that you don't have any energy, impaired motor coordination, or lack of emotional response, or memory loss. I have worked with a young student in pre-K. They could not be diagnosed as having mental illness, but you could tell sometime, by the time they are 12 years old, especially, this is a huge marker after early childhood, when our body undergo another great development to the extent that this brain of somebody cannot handle this issue. And that's when in the school system, we start to see this student was doing well, but now they are disorganized and they are talking about things that we have not even taught. And then we have to look carefully into the life of a young person, because I'm talking more about children and adolescents. We begin to see behavior issues in children and adolescents just through school. Why? Number one, because when they are in school from pre-K to high school, they spend a lot of time in the school setting. That's what, and if you have a child in school, please pay attention. Your children and my children that grew up here, they spend at least a minimum of 40 hours a week. And I know there may be parents here who have children that they are homeschooling, so this may not apply to you, but you could also see other issues like that through their development. So your children spend so much time in school. So if there's anything that is not right, it's going to manifest. We have a very structured environment in school, and wherever it's not right is going to show up during school time, school days and school time. Think about yourself. You work for 40 hours a week minimum. Most people are working minimum 40 hours. And that has made me a counselor, practicing 40 hours a week. Think about your child in the school system for 40 plus hours. And if you're picking your child from home to school and bringing back your child, we are spending more than 40 hours a week with the child. And we are spending more time with the children than they are spending at home. And that's why this behavior will manifest. So, and your child is also spending a lot of time in the company of adults, not teenagers babysitting, adults who are 18 years older, who are trained. Even the bus driver is trained to notice some things, report to the teacher. The teacher will report to the counselor will see the student, and the principal you get to know. We have a nurse in school, we have a psychologist, we have a guidance counselor. We have all these resources in school, and this is how come we are able to catch up things in our children and adolescents that you may even miss at home, because we are spending so much time together. Especially the younger children, sometimes they forget. When I have worked in the preschool classroom with 4-year-olds, they almost forget that you're a teacher. They could say, Mama, and then I have to remind them, Miss Wamboy, because you're spending so much time and providing nurture, love, education to this child. So sometimes they almost call you Mama when they cry, okay? And the teachers are trained to respond in kind, to nurture young children. Also the teenagers. Teenagers are on another level because they talk. They have verbal skills. So they would say what is not happening. So I'll give you an example and then I'll keep quiet so that you can ask questions and comments, and other people here who have worked with young people, or you may know about schizophrenia, and we can share in an adult learning environment. No one is the tree of knowledge. No one knows everything, and that's why we come together to discuss, to have a conversation, so that we can enrich each other, because there are people here who may even know more than us. Okay, and that's why we are going to talk together. So I'll give you an example. I have a child, a very smart child. The child has had ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and they are in the school system. They are in middle school, like 6th grade, middle school. This child is also smart, talented, and gifted. And one day this young lady came and said, we have in our school system, we had a behavioral health services counselor like me actually. This child came to me, I can't say the name, and I can't tell you the school either. and I also have not been in this school for 10 years, so I could be all right. This child came and said, they told the teacher that they see their grandmother who died. They see their grandmother who died, and she's convinced she's have been coming on television. And the grandmother is giving her instructions. So they referred the child to me and they just said that there's something that is bugging me. The child talked to the mother and the mother thought something is not right because this child is repeating the same thing and saying they are seeing the grandmother and she's the only one who sees the grandmother. Nobody else in the house. Never. And when the TV turns itself on when she's watching so she can see the grandmother. Think about that. So she was referred to me and she said, "Do you believe me?" I said, "Yes, I do, because the first thing we are going to do in counseling is validate someone's experience. And that's my gift. When somebody says, "I see something nobody else says," don't say you don't. I say, "I believe you." Because from that time, that's when the child told me about the grandmother. And then I knew something is not right. And then the behavior is not only in school. Never rate a child because of school behavior. Remember me? If you're going to rate a child as having a behavior issue, it has to be manifested at home. You are seeing grandmother at home. Then the grandmother comes with the child in school. So she says that the grandmother came to the classroom and I was standing next to the teacher. The behavior has moved from home to school. Then maybe this child goes to Sunday school. The Sunday school teacher has been told the same. Then this child may go for recreational activities and told the youth director that she sees the grandmother. Now we have 4 areas. What do you think there is? We have a problem. Where do you put intervention? You will need all these people at some point to put intervention. And then you enlist the help of the school. Remember what I said? In our school system, I'm talking about Georgia and most United States public school system. And I have worked in the public schools, so I haven't worked with private schools and Christian schools. We have a psychologist who can even test your IQ, all right? We have a guidance counselor. Then we have a behavioral counselor like myself. And we have a school nurse. And we have special education teacher. And this, my students, I'm giving you an example, their grades begin to fail because they are now listening to the grandmother. They are not listening to mama. They are not listening to the teacher. They are not listening to their Sunday school teacher. They are not listening to the youth director at the recreational facility. Like they are going to come on break during summer. Maybe not. The child is not listening to the librarian. The child is saying, "Grandmother follows me and grandmother walks with me and works with me." I was curious. Why is this child seeing grandmother everywhere? Turns out, when grandmother was alive, this was the caretaker of the child. So in the mind, it has gone that the only person who can take care of this child is the grandmother. No wonder the child is seeing grandmother in every setting. And now the grandmother appearings are interfering with school. And the first area we are going to see the child deteriorating in school is in their behavior, because now you have to leave the classroom and you are referred for services. Attendance. There'll be a time when the child will say, "Grandmother is not coming to school today." So the child is not going to go to school this day. So grandmother. And then it will continue like this until we refer the child to a doctor. And we keep very good notes in school, by the way. Everyone who sees the child has documentation. So this is not something people are imagining. Nobody goes to school, tomorrow is Wednesday, I'm going to label a boy's child as this. No, we have documentation. We listen. We spend time with the child. Myself, my job was even to go into the settings, spaces of students. So I would be in the classroom observing a child. I would be in the recreation observing the child. The only thing I have not done is go to someone's church to observe a child, but I have done it at home. So my conclusion will come and say, I want to refer this child to a psychiatrist to diagnose whether this child has schizophrenia or is just something else. And for that reason, I'm going to finish by saying this, that this is a very good information. It's very good information for this day and time, because prior to 1996, it was almost nearly impossible for a student in the school system. I can quote United Kingdom, Kenya, and United States of America, and most likely Canada, places I am familiar with and know. It was almost near impossible for a student with schizophrenia to finish high school and graduate, because you see, the mind becomes disorganized to a point that this person cannot function. I'm going to stop there because somebody may want to ask questions, and then I'll tell you later why after 1996 and why 1996 it became more apparent that it is possible for a child to graduate from high school if they have been diagnosed with schizophrenia when they are in the 6th grade. Prior to that, it would have become difficult, and this child will not be able to continue in school, because we cannot bring grandmother to every situation in our life. But I thank God that this time and this day, as we are speaking, even though schizophrenia is not curable, remember, it is treatable. I give you an example of other diseases and sicknesses that may not be cured, but they are treatable, like sexually transmitted diseases, past viral diseases, that infections that flare up, that you may never be cured, but you can be treated, and you function well, and you will work, and you will thrive, and you'll be born again, and you do a great purpose in this life. So do not rate anybody as not productive, because we serve a God who cares. And thank God, doctors and counselors and psychiatrists, they work together in partnership. I'm going to stop there and I'll side and join this conversation with Bishop Muthe, because down the road many years, this person, if they are not treated and they don't follow through with treatment, they can end up on the streets. And why are people ending up in the streets? Because they are being discharged to the streets, because the families, for number one reason why someone is being discharged on the street is because there is no family member, close or distant, that can keep this person in their home. And the people may have homes, they may be rich, they may be poor or educated, but because it's a complicated and complex disease, nobody is willing to keep their brother who has schizophrenia, or their sister, or their mother, or their father in their home. And that for that reason, I pray that God will touch our hearts and give us compassion for people who are even close to us, our own blood that is on the street, because very few people are willing or even able, because of the complexity of the disease, to house and keep their own family at home. So they spend a lot of time in the hospital and out. And in America, they can ask somebody who is sick, that, like, do you want to go home? And they say yes, and they discharge you, also because we don't have a lot of money for everybody that needs treatment. So for you who are on this platform, if you have someone who is sick or has schizophrenia, make it your business to get help for this person. Let us work together, because if there's nobody to advocate for you, like Bishop Pini Muthe said, they advocate for men and women on the streets. If we don't have a Bishop Muthe advocating for our families on the streets, and others we can name, then there is a very short life left on anyone who is on the streets. Thank you so much. I see when Reverend Anthony Come now opens his window and we see Cayman, it is time for me to keep quiet and let him take the microphone and tell us something.
Yeah, real quick. Is too much stress drives you to that disease? If you go through too much process and too much stress, can it direct you to be that way?
I am not sure it is the stress. The stress can trigger. The stress can trigger what is in us much more, because we say that schizophrenia is a brain disorder. It's a brain illness. Yes, it can be triggered by stress and environment too. It might take even long to manifest, maybe never, but mostly it is, we can say it's hereditary, but with caveat. Just because something is hereditary and that you're predisposed to a certain illness that you have seen in your family does not mean that everyone in the family is going to get sick. So we can relax at this time. Yes,
Oh, thank you.
it's never good. Stress is not good for anything. It can trigger stuff. Yeah.
So you can be that way, but because you control yourself, then you can be able to survive for a long time. Stress is a bad thing, man. Stress gives you high blood pressure. It gives you all these diseases. So it's important for us to take care of ourselves and stay away from stress. Wow.
Exactly.
So we have 8 minutes. Anyone with a question, please go ahead. Thank you.
May I ask a favor?
Go ahead.
Should we discontinue live streaming so that any individual who has a personal question you feel safe to ask, or even